What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Turn the Jets podcast. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at WillPod11 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. TOJ Talks, all 32 on TLNS Media. Same intro as always. Happy Monday. Hope everyone had a nice weekend. Enjoyed a little bit of a game week where we didn't have to, no one had to complain too much. It was mostly all good, kind of avoiding any type of serious injuries. So, kind of all is good in Jets land. Jermaine Johnson activated, yesterday afternoon off of PUP. That feels like things are kind of going in the right direction, Rich. Rich Cimini of ESPN, now a member of the Hall of Fame voting and everything like that. Rich, I want to talk about that at one point. How you doing? How was Saturday? Be getting back into kind of game tweeting mode and everything like that.
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Will. Good to be with you, as always. It's even for writers, I'm sure players feel the same way. It takes you a little bit, Now, I was not in Green Bay. We don't typically travel in the preseason, but I'll be there on, Saturday night at MetLife, and it definitely takes you a little, preseason. The writers need preseason too. Let's put it that way. Just stuff to watch during the game and so forth. So yeah, it's good to be back playing games.
I guess, I want to talk a little bit about camp as a whole, and I guess let's start there and we'll get to kind of the game and what to look forward to. But I guess what have your impressions been? It feels like a much more intense training camp than in a while. And obviously, again, CBA and just kind of culture of the NFL, it's not the 90s, obviously, and 2-a-days and 3 days and stuff like that. But I feel like of the camps I've been at over the last half decade or so, around the NFL and Jets specifically, this one to me has at least felt like as much of a 90s training camp, early 2000s training camp as you're going to get. Has that been your impression as well?
Yeah, you younger folk don't know what it was like back in covering training camp back in the 2-a-day era. I mean, the player, and even talking to the players the other day, they were out at the facility. Some of those Jet alums, they're like, these guys have it easy now compared to what we had. But I would agree that it's probably the most intense camp that I've seen the Jets have since the CBA really changed in 2011. Rex Ryan had a couple of tough camps up in Cortland. They did live tackling like in a goal line situation. These guys have modified it a little bit. They were doing it in one-on-ones, and then they, in that scrimmage, they were tackling in the scrimmage last Saturday. So more intense, more physical. The good thing is, I think I like it because I'm old school. I think that's the way you callous players. You harden them for the regular season. I even read somewhere, I think Matt LaFleur may have quoted some study of something that players who actually play in the preseason are less likely to get injured during the season. I'm not sure of the validity of that, but Matt LaFleur quoted that. So I like it. I mean, you might get some dings and some bumps and bruises in training camp. Clearly, the Jets have had a number of those, but nothing serious. And I think it sets a mentality that they desperately need.
Yeah, no, I saw that as well. I think it was like the numbers were like a half or a third of the amount of injuries if guys played like throughout the preseason and just got some form of reps. I think Quincy talked about it a little bit, I believe last week, of like they used to have to use, the preseason game is the first time you bring a guy to the ground and, you're going full speed. So it's a lot more cluttery and like it's a little more dangerous, and getting that out of the way and kind of practicing what you play. And I tweeted about this when I thought, people were there was very vast opinions on whether the Jets should play guys on Saturday night. And I just felt like Aaron Glenn's whole mantra has been like, we'll play anywhere. We're going to be a tough physical team. And it would have felt very, I don't know if you feel this way, Rich, but it would have been like, you said all this great stuff and then you're not really backing it up. I don't know. I thought it would have sent a bad message if they didn't play on Saturday.
Yeah, I would have been surprised. I mean, the vibe all week out there that was at the start, even Justin Fields came out and said it, basically, we expect to play, because that was the messaging through the entire offseason, is they want to be physical, they want to be tough, and, create competition. So, yeah, it would have been counter to what he had been preaching had they gone out there with their backups, the entire game. So good on them for doing that. Like you said, doesn't appear like they suffered any serious injuries. He'll get second guessed if they go out against the Giants on Saturday and a key starter goes down, with a major injury. That's going to happen. It's football. But I like the approach they're taking.
I guess we can kind of get to Saturday because it goes kind of hand in hand with, I guess, what's kind of going on throughout camp. I guess let's start with Fields. I think that's the obvious place. I thought for the most part he looked comfortable. He had the missed out route to Garrett. I thought that was one that you'd love to see them kind of get down. Obviously, that's a timing route, and that's just repetitions to me of, you know, one, two,
Right.
three, the ball's out of your hand. But generally speaking, I thought the pockets the offensive line created, and again, this is against the Packers starters. That's why I think it's a little bit more valuable. Vanilla defense, obviously, but big pockets. He took his time. He went through his reads and like got out when he had to. To me, if Fields can play in that manner, obviously it'll get more in depth as the season gets closer. But don't you feel like that's kind of the recipe for success? Run the ball well, stay in third and manageable, let Fields either use his legs or
Yep.
when he has to use his big arm.
Absolutely. That's the Jets formula. It's not going to be fancy. It's going to be, it's going to be smash mouth, ground and pound, like Rex used to say. And I thought he was very comfortable in the pocket. He was poised. He found his checkdowns. The one guy you thought he would have good chemistry with is Garrett Wilson, but they missed on that throw, as you noted. They ran the ball well. I thought Membu did really well at right tackle, and he was blocking Rashawn Gary on a couple of plays. So there's a top flight rusher he was blocking. So all in all, pretty good. I mean, I'd like to see it a little more this week, take another step forward, try to get some of those outside people involved, some of the perimeter people, and get going there. I mean, obviously, Andrew Beck's stock has risen immensely. Yeah, I see Pro Football Focus, and I don't really put too much stock in their ratings, but all of a sudden he's one of the highest rated offensive guys in the league off the first preseason game. So, I think it was really good that Fields showed the patience on checking down. And, the Packers were not blitzing. It was vanilla coverages. I mean, gosh, the zone they played, some of the zones they were playing were so soft. So he did what he had to do. He just checked it down.
Do you expect I don't know. Usually the second preseason game is kind of what the third preseason one used to be, where you see these guys for the longest amount of time. You think, I don't know, I feel like maybe we see Fields a quarter on Saturday or something like that. Do you think it'll be based off what happens throughout the week, or Glenn's going to probably kind of have in his head a set number of plays? I feel like if they went 3 and out on Saturday, he would have played another series. It was because they got 10 plays in that they're like, okay, we feel good.
Yeah, I think they'll up the play total this week. I mean, it'll be a busy week. They have the 2 joint practices with the Giants, and they have a couple of days off, so they should be well rested for Saturday. I would expect to see him, maybe 20 snaps, maybe double what he had. And you're right. I think for the last preseason game, normally you'd want to dial it back a little bit there, but in Glenn's case, he's doing things a little differently. So I wouldn't rule out the starters playing a little bit. And, of course they have the bye week before the opener. It depends on maybe some positional battles he wants to see and so forth, how Fields is doing. Fields has had a shaky training camp, and, he did show up for the game, which is great. I still need to see a little bit more of a downfield passing attack, which I think is a concern right now. But, I definitely could see him playing a couple of dozen plays on Saturday night.
What'd you make of the running backs? Because I think they were a group that obviously had a really nice night. The Jets obviously ran for a shit ton of yards. Like, naturally, that's what's going to happen. Braylon Allen, was concussing guys in the first quarter, but, got stopped on a 4th and short. So it was kind of like a little up, I would say a tiny bit up and down for him. Just, you saw the really good Braylon Allen, then you saw like, hey, I'd love to see you get 4th and 2 there. I thought Davis had a really nice day, ends up getting banged up. Brees was short, but he had the one, it's obviously gone viral now that the second run, he missed the cutback lane and everyone's, now saying Brees has no vision. So there's a lot there. And then Donovan Edwards, obviously a guy who's a big name UDFA, had a great day. What do you make of that running back room as a whole? Because it feels like one of the strongest groups on the team. And the team's kind of, I feel like, are very quick right now to kind of get on Brees Hall and be bigger fans of just slightly younger guys, but those guys aren't perfect players either.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the running backs did okay. I mean, Allen had the one run, where the offensive line and Joe Tippmann in particular at left guard, had a great seal block and just, opened up a massive hole for Braylon Allen. Of course, once he gets rolling downhill, I can't even think of the guy's name who got really dinged by Braylon, but he's a big man to take down in the open field. So, I wouldn't get down on Brees Hall. If he missed a cut, if he missed a hole, I mean, that's what these preseason games are for, so I think he'll be fine. it's a really good backfield. I think it's going to be – it's hard to get 3 backs involved in a regular season game. I mean, 2, yes, but when you're – the third, like how much is he really going to play? Davis, maybe a handful of snaps per game. I think Breece Hall, they're talking about using him in around the formation, split him out wide. That'll be very interesting. They did that in the past. It's not like this is a new thing they're going to do with Breece Hall. I think they just want to do a little bit more of it. And so that's going to be a fascinating – I know the fantasy owners are I'm getting hit with a lot of questions about how are they going to use the running backs. I think, last year, Braylon Allen had 28% of the running back carries. I think that number will go up this year. Breece's number will come down a little bit, and then you get a little uptick from Isaiah Davis. I think that's the way it'll go.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page as you. I think they'll use a lot, maybe more 2-back stuff where Breece can kind of be used as a receiver, or maybe he'll be the first check down and things like that. What'd you make of, Tanner Engstrand as a whole? Again, it's very hard to take out of even training camp. Sometimes it's hard to take out of things because there's fan practices, which they don't show quite as much. And you're going against the same team and on all these different things. And I thought he had a really impressive performance on Saturday, just in, hey, it's the first checklist, right? It's the first kind of box you want to check as a new offensive coordinator. I thought it was interesting he called plays from the field and not in the booth. I don't know if that's going to stay the same, but it's always interesting to see whether, these guys choose to. I remember with LaFleur, it was a big deal of, is he in the box or not? I thought the tight end screen everyone's, been really excited about. What'd you just make of Engstrand as a whole, throughout the summer, and then got in his first game action, and obviously the Jets put up some points?
Yeah, I mean, I think he tried to create the identity of what they want to be on offense. I think they ran the ball about 40 times, and that's what they want to be. I think he played to his offensive line on that first series. That's the one I really went back and watched on the all 22, was just the first series. And, I think some downhill runs, a couple, zone run. I'm remembering one zone run. It's like you said, Will, it was so vanilla. They didn't really try much. One thing I noticed in training camp a lot, I think Garrett Wilson in motion is interesting. Now, I'm going to have to go back and check my data to see if he did that a lot last year. I just recall I see him doing it more this year, which I think is a good idea, just to get him some free releases off the line and create some favorable matchups. So I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, no, me too. I want to transition to the defensive side of the ball quickly. Sauce obviously had the first drive is, the pass breakups are great, and Sauce has always been a really good cover corner. I thought the willingness to tackle in a preseason game when he easily could have kind of allayed that, and it would have been like, whatever. I think people would have gotten mad at him, but it was like, first preseason game, he just got paid. I'm not saying it was the best tackle I've ever seen, but it was the effort of just like being willing to do it. And the messaging, again, I think this is kind of my theme, I guess, of Saturday was like all of the things the Jets have preached in pressers and all that stuff. Like it kind of came to fruition of, hey, we're going to keep doing it. And Sauce has talked so much about tackling. Were you, I guess, impressed from that? And then just defensively, the first team defense got two real series. Will McDonald looked good. I mean, it's hard to take too much away from, 2 series, obviously, in a preseason game.
Yeah, I mean, Sauce, it's interesting. Like he said the other day that he's become very good at blocking out all the outside noise. Well, I know he's very mindful of what people say about his tackling. Like he knows what the fans are thinking. He probably knows, what his coaches have probably gotten on him too. I mean, he wasn't a good tackler last year, and I think he's really trying to improve that. And you saw it show up right there in the first series. It looked like they were picking on him a little bit. They threw a couple.
They went right at him.
Yeah, they went right at him there. Jordan Love went right at him. And I also noticed he was aggressive at the line of scrimmage in some press coverage, which is good to see, which is going to be a bigger part of their game plan on defense. They're going to be playing more man. And as opposed to, they're predominantly a zone team the last few years. They did play a little more man than usual last year than they had been, but they've been a zone team. And so I think they'll make the conversion over to becoming more of a man team. And I think that he's going to have to be aggressive. At the line of scrimmage, he could be a dominant player with the length of his arms and his size. Like Ray Mickens said the other day at the press conference, he goes, if I had his size, I'd still be playing, but which I thought was a funny line. But yeah, Sauce Gardner, that was a really very, very positive start for him.
want to ask you about two guys, and I just want to quickly preview this week. But Jay Tufele had a great day. Obviously, I of course jokingly tweeted, I was like, he might be the best player I've ever seen. I mean, he obviously had a fantastic day on Saturday, and then Leonard Taylor was a guy who a couple of people texted me before the game, have you seen Leonard Taylor at all during camp? And I'm like, I've been a couple of practices. I don't remember a single play he's made. And it's not that I don't think he has talent. I just don't remember him standing out at all. And then, of course, the lights come on and makes a fantastic play. And it showed a little bit of what he did last preseason and at times last year. Defensive tackle outside of Quinnen and I guess Coward, but really outside of Quinnen's not a great group. What'd you make of Tufele? Because it seems like the coaching staff really likes him. And frankly, he looked really good on Saturday. So I don't know if that's going to stay, but if he's going to be good, that changes the dynamic of that room a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he showed some get off in that, he was aggressive. He had 4 pressures, a sack and a half, and then the fumble recovery. I mean, and I think he only played 18 snaps or something like that. So, man, that's a pretty good production. So he's I think Coward, depending on his injury, he and Quinnen are going to be the starters on first and second down. Tufele's going to have to come in. They're going to rotate. It'll be a committee, that other spot. Now, Leonard Taylor's an interesting guy. Like, we do our beat writer roster pool before it's every year we do it, and it has to be submitted before the opening kickoff on the preseason, which makes it a little harder. So I was debating on whether to keep Leonard Taylor, and in the end, I did, because I said, they're not a guy that big with that kind of athletic ability. They're just going to keep him. Instead of giving up on him, they'll give him another chance. So I had him as literally my last defensive lineman, maybe my 9th or 10th guy. And he goes out and he makes a good play, and so the tools are there. He did get off to a slow start in training camp. You're right. You weren't imagining stuff when you went out. He wasn't doing much. All of a sudden he perks up a little bit. I think he needs a little fire lit under his rear end every once in a while. And so a talented guy, he's just got to put it together and show a consistent effort.
Yeah, I think it's more in the head. Yeah, as I say, the headspace more than the physical talent side of things. Obviously, that's why he's a 5-star recruit that didn't get drafted.
He's got tools.
I wanted to ask you just quickly, special teams, I thought, is something we don't talk a lot about. I felt like McNamara had a really nice day, and I know it's a punter and whatever, but there was a lot of people upset that Morstead got cut, and hey, how are they going with this unproven guy? I feel like, the coaching staff knew what they were doing, and Morstead doesn't really fit the timeline in which the Jets are on, but kicking feels like it's Folk's job, and then returning-wise, feels like they're giving Kene and Pritchett every shot to try to win the kick returner and punt returner job. Is that how you see it? I know Gibson's still a guy that, when he's healthy, has got a shot, and there's other guys in the mix, but it feels like those two have taken a majority of the reps and obviously took all the reps on Saturday before he got hurt.
Let me just say this about the punting situation. When Morstead got cut, I couldn't believe the outcry among Jet fans.
It was insane.
Look at his stats last year. He was below average in almost every category last year. And, his age, plus he's, how could I say this politely? He's kind of a locker room lawyer type of guy, and I don't think Aaron Glenn wanted that, a 38, 39-year-old punter, whatever he is, with that kind of influence in the locker room and coming off a below average year. I mean, just look at his stats. I mean, 2 years ago, he was excellent. I mean, he was spot on. But last year, so I didn't understand the uproar. Now, McNamara had a really good game, and I think he has solidified that spot. The kick, I do believe Gibson, he's getting pushed. He is perhaps on the bubble. He's dealing with the shoulder injury. I think he's a guy, he's been around for 2 years now. You kind of know what he is. And you take away the phenomenal punt return against Buffalo in the opener a couple of years ago. You take away that and, name me a play that he's made, So I think he perhaps has reached his ceiling. And I think this Pritchett kid, I saw him in OTAs, and you could see that there's just something about him. He is super quick. He's sure-handed. I've seen him catch every punt in practice. He's an interesting guy. And if it comes down to, they'll take one of their guys over Gibson. Gibson's a holdover from the previous staff. If it comes down to a fight, that's a fight. That's a legitimate. Now, Kene is, I did not have him on my final 53. I went back and forth on that one. I could see him making it, but Pritchett's the guy to watch. A
Yeah,
good
Pritchett.
player. I mean,
He
he's
really,
like the new version of Xavier Gibson. So
yeah, he did a really good job, I thought, on Saturday in college too, of just like I feel like every return, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's like 8 to 10 yards sometimes is a huge swing. Like that, and Gibson, it wasn't as sure-handed. It felt like last year's for like he just feel like there was a lot of indecision, and it kind of happened with Barrios at the end too, where you have one
yeah,
fumble and it kind of gets to you, and then you start questioning whether I fair catch here, whether I pick this off a ball bounce, all these different things, and it just
yeah.
I don't know. That to
I
me
mean,
is one of
when
those.
you're a new coach, like I've heard coaches say this, when you're a new coach, you want the guy to catch the ball.
Yeah.
You're not even worried about like the big yard. I remember Rex Ryan. That's why he loved Jim Leonard so much. He always said that guy could catch it in a hurricane. And Parcells used to say the same thing. He just wanted someone who could catch the ball, and I think Pritchett can catch the ball. So I would not be surprised if he makes the team.
Last guy quickly is Arian Smith. Like he only had the one catch and whatever, but I thought we've seen it throughout camp, but I think it's something that, again, I think his role is going to be very gadgety, very like 10 to 12 snaps of like real legitimate, like he's involved in the play, but I know it wasn't a completion and the throw could have been a little better. Maybe he stays on his feet, whatever it is. His ability to just like get off and go and
Yeah.
at least stretch the defense so you can't just sit there and bracket Garrett Wilson with 12 guys. I know it's a little thing, but seeing that on Friday night or Saturday night where, had the spot route and yeah, that's nice and whatever. I mean, it's a normal NFL play. I just felt like his ability to get over the top right away is one thing the Jets are going to need to have at least a little bit of, since they're going to be probably 7-8 guys in the box pretty much every play.
Yeah, I can't believe Martinez overthrew him on that play.
How do you
I mean,
overthrow him?
it's hard to overthrow a guy with 4.3 speed, but he did. And really interesting guy. I think I've only seen him drop one ball in training camp, and perhaps two. That's about it. He's really improved in that area. He will be on the 46. He will be dressing. He will have a role because he does special teams too, and that's something that their top receivers do not do. So I think he'll probably be the fourth receiver. I really do. You'd like to see him catch the ball in a preseason game, like make a tough catch. He's made some catches in traffic in camp. So I think you summarized it perfectly, Will. Probably a guy who's going to play 10 or 15 snaps on offense. And as soon as he comes on the field, the defense is going to know it's going to be a jet sweep or it's going to be a vertical route, one or the other. But he can be what Malachi Corley was supposed to be. I think Malachi is not going to make the team. I mean, it's just unfortunate. He just has not grabbed the opportunity, and I would not be surprised at all if they move on from him.
Yeah, he's another guy who I felt like had a chance to like. I know everyone kept being like, "Oh, it's a new staff." Like a receiver coach that I think there wasn't the best agreement on how Corley, like maturity-wise, was last year. Still the same receiver coach, so I'm not sure. Again, like Glenn wasn't coming in blind, and there's been times where, again, we're not supposed to talk about the depth charts, whatever. I would say Corley's played a lot with Adrian Martinez and Brady Cook, and not so much with Tyrod Taylor and Justin Fields. If you want an envision of where he practices normally, Rich, one other guy that got banged up that I know is kind of. Lazard gets banged up. I don't know the severity of it. I know Glenn mentioned he was getting further testing. I don't even know where that happened. It kind of felt like he was fine. And then some Packers guy said he was in a sling and was very confusing.
Yeah, I went back and checked. I think he might have gotten banged up a little bit on one of his first plays. He caught the ball, and he stayed in, to his credit. So maybe that's a good sign.
What do you make of Lazard, though? Because I feel like I know he's a good blocker, and I know like at some point he's a veteran who took a pay cut, and there's something to be said for that. But I don't know. I feel like I see a lot more of Skinner and Brandon Smith, and these guys during camp. I know they're undrafted rookies, and like you're always at a disadvantage. But at some point, like Lazard kind of is who he is, and I don't know if he's like what's he really offering you at this point that's different than some of these young kids you could kind of sculpt into something maybe.
It's a great question. To me, he's a redundancy. I mean, he's Josh Reynolds. And Josh Reynolds knows the offense already, so he has an advantage. I mean, how many players can you have like that? 6'3", 6'4" receiver. In Lazard's case, I think he's 6'5", but How many guys like that can you carry on your roster? So ultimately, if it comes down to a Lazard versus a Skinner, a Lazard versus a Gibson or a Corley? I mean, if that sixth spot, I mean, Lazard doesn't play special teams, so I had him on my roster. I didn't feel strongly about that. I could easily see him being cut. Now he's got the injury factor, so maybe they stash him on IR for they carry him on the. Well, actually, they don't have to do that anymore. You can just put the guy on IR, for 4 weeks to start the year out. But yeah, I think that's an up in the air situation. It depends on Skinner's looked good in practice, and he's the same kind of body build, and so Lazard you're right. He doesn't offer a lot. You know what you're getting from him. I mean, he does block. I'll give him that. It doesn't cost a lot to keep him because he took such a big pay cut. But it's an interesting one because you don't want to cut him before the opener because he could get picked up by Pittsburgh. And Lazard's a pretty bright guy, and he could just spill his guts, to Pittsburgh the week before the game. And that would not be a good situation. So that's a very, very interesting one with Lazard.
Yeah, maybe the Phantom IR is going to have to be the move there. This week, Jets Giants. Tomorrow, next 2 days really. We talked about this before we started recording. I think this is the true dog days of camp. Like you're in a week 4-ish really now. You've been hitting a lot. You're post the game. Like you got somebody coming in your building, then you're going 20 minutes up the road to practice again. I'm sure we're going to see a couple fights. I'm sure Michael Clemens will be involved in all of them. Is there anything you're looking forward to, generally speaking? I know you covered the infamous, what was that, 2004, and Eric Cohen, Vilma, and those guys, and Shockey.
That was crazy.
Kind of I don't, or more like something a little more tame the next 2 days.
Yeah, I think it'll be much closer. It'll be pretty tame, I think. You might see in a case, but weather's supposed to be really hot, so you could see some flare-ups. But nothing will top what it was in 2004. That just looked like all-out brawling there, multiple brawls. So even Coughlin was involved in a shouting match with Donnie Henderson, which I was standing right there for. I'll never forget. But I'm digressing. But I'm looking forward to seeing the tackles, Olu Fashanu and Membu. As I said earlier, I thought Membu had a really good game. I watched him. I was waiting for him to screw up, being a rookie. But, he was perfect in his pass pro, looked really physical against the run. And we know what the Giants have on the D-line. They're going to come with Carter and Thibodeau on the edge. I think it's going to be a really interesting joint practice for Olu's looked great in camp. And so I think the Jets really could have something there at their tackle spots, and they'll get tested over the next couple of days for sure. And then again on Saturday night, that's a really interesting one to me. So that's what I'm looking for. Fields against the Giants defense, you're not going to see too much in terms of exotic schemes or anything like that. It'll be pretty vanilla, but I would like to see the receivers get more involved. We know what Wilson can do, obviously. I'd like to see someone else step up, and it hasn't. And if I'm Darren Muji right now, I'm starting to make some calls. There is nothing out there right now in terms of free agents. I mean, Keenan Allen was probably the last good guy. I mean, you're looking at like Tyler Boyd, guys like that. He can't run anymore, and so they're going to have to look at a trade or something because I see this receiver core as being a problem this year. I really do.
Yeah, it's the one spot on the roster. I think linebacker depth and stuff you could get into, or defensive tackle we talked about, but guys have started to step up a defensive tackle where you at least feel like, hey, there's something there. Someone's separating themselves. As much as I love what Brandon Smith's done during camp, he's not going to be your number 2 receiver this year. He might not make the team. So there's something to be said there. You mentioned it. I think the trench battle is going to be. I want to say the Jets continue to be physical. I know we talked so much about how they've been physical during camp. They've been really physical they were really physical on Saturday night, and I think Mike Tannenbaum had a nice line this morning on ESPN Radio talking about how he's like, I don't know how good the Jets are going to be or not, but they're going to be very similar to the Lions, where the week after you play them, and you're going to be so beat up. The Giants are a team that hasn't been that physical in the last couple of years and have struggled similar to the Jets. You like to see them be like, okay, another jersey, and take it to them. Because I feel like, Rich, as much as the Jets had some success, quote unquote, in joint practices the last couple of years, I still feel like it was like the same problems. It was like they couldn't block anybody, and they were still getting guys running all over them. So, I'm not hoping for fights, but if the Jets are getting pushed around at all, I want to see something more than just like, again, Clemens getting in the middle of getting himself in the middle of something. You had a good tweet. You're like, the over under on Clemens getting a penalty, cash pretty quickly.
I think it was 7.5 minutes into the game on Saturday before he got in his first fisticuffs. I think the Jets approached the Green Bay game like it was a regular season game, and I think the Packers approached it like it was a preseason game. So I think that was the difference in the mentalities. The Jets were playing at a different speed and physical mentality. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes against the Giants. The Giants, I think, will be better than people think this year. They do have some talent. They're going to have, I don't know if Neighbors is going to practice this week. I guess there's a chance he might practice, so that'll be an interesting matchup, with Sauce. I think we looked for that last year and it never really materialized. The Jets, I think they pretty much owned the practice last year at Florham Park. I do remember that for sure. Pardon me, I just been dealing with some allergies, but I think I'm looking at the edges, like I said, and then just to see how Fields can handle, I think, a pretty good Giant defense.
I want to finish up here. 2 quick points. One, Jermaine Johnson, I know I mentioned, will be back. I saw people ask if he's going to practice. Like, guys, he's going to be doing like individual drills for probably a week. I would not. It's going to be very similar to Brees and Mike Williams a year ago. Like, this is not going to be next week. 2 days from now, he's not going to be in 11 on 11. That's just not how this works. So I just want to squash that. I know not to be a Debbie Downer. It's awesome he's back, but
they don't want to throw it to the Wolves right away. I mean, I don't think he'll be an 11 on 11 against the Giants. He'll probably be doing some positional stuff and working his way up. And then probably, I would think next week they would try to get him to some team drills.
Last thing, Hall of Fame voting. You talked about, hit it at the top. Got some interesting classes to debate over here, Rich. There's some good guys coming up here in the next couple of years. Obviously, I guess what that kind of mean to you to kind of have that happen, and B, have you already started looking over the ballot for next year? I know we're only a year out now. Hall of Fame, a year ago or a week ago, right? Jared Allen and all those guys were a week ago, so it's coming up sooner.
I just got the list in the mail. There's like 150 names on the list. So I have to start sifting through that. And, next year, Drew Brees is up for the first time. So, that's a no-brainer. He goes in right away. Unfortunately, and it is a total honor to be, there's only 50 of us, who do this. And it's something I've long wanted to do. And it's you have to be in the right place at the right time. It depends. It's almost like a Supreme Court appointment. You kind of have it for life pretty much. So I got my shot and I'm so thankful and thrilled. And unfortunately, there's not going to be any Jet players who I think have like strong cases. I know I got hit up on social media from Jet fans saying, get Nick Mangold in and get, Mark Gastineau. Gastineau's in the senior committee, by the way, now, because he's exhausted his, modern era eligibility. So he, much like Joe Klecko, he's moved into a different category. And I think you could make a case for Gastineau. Do I think he'll ever get in? I don't. But you could make a case for it because he's got the sack numbers for sure. And, Mangold was an all-pro once or twice. He had several Pro Bowls. It's going to be really difficult for Nick just because of there's a backlog of offensive linemen. So, but I'll be in there voting, and I guess Eli Manning will be the big topic once again this year. I would, based on what I know of last year, it's going to be hard for him to make it this year. Because first of all, you got Drew Brees now on the ballot, and the voters tend to think position oriented. I know you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to take the best 5, but sometimes they just go by position. And so I tend to think that Eli's not going to make it this year, but I will certainly do all my research and talk to people and come up with the best conclusions I can.
I tweeted about Kevin Mawae being underrated, and everyone's like, he has a gold jacket. Why is he underrated? And I was like, because I feel like everyone talks about Mangold as if he was the better player. And while Nick was awesome and he was a part of a really great time with the Jets, Kevin Mawae to me was like otherworldly in a lot of the things he was able to do. Like, you just don't see centers pull and get out in the screen game like that. And I just felt like Mawai was like, I don't know. As much as I love Nick, I'm a Mawai defender, I guess, through and through.
No, I think Mawai, he revolutionized the position, the way he played on the edge. I mean, he was, when they ran a toss sweep to Curtis Martin, Kevin Mawai was out front leading the way. I mean, think about that for a second.
Ridiculous.
Your center is out leading the way on the sweep, pulling to the perimeter. So he did things that most centers didn't do. And, to me, I mean, Nick Mangwell was a really good player. I think Kevin Mawai was a cut above, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame right now. And I do think it's going to be tough for Nick.
Yeah, I remember Mawai. Like, I just think people, it's a different era, and these guys were playing against 330-pound nose tackles that were like gigantic human beings, and be able to get out on the edge, like snap and pull like that against, the Ray Lewises of the world is playing linebacker coming down hills. A different animal. Rich, appreciate you hopping on. Obviously, I'll see you tomorrow at camp. Make sure you guys get your live show tickets. I'm trying to think of any other PSAs. I'll be back on the feed tomorrow. But yeah, appreciate you hopping on, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Will.